Hello, hello, hello. I am the Linux Mench. Today, I'm going to show you how to change your username to give your user a new name, but to keep the same home folder. And after that, I'm going to show you how to add a second user to your system. And this is going to work in Debian and in Arch Linux. So let's get to it. So today, I'm in a virtual machine of Arch Linux in the awesome window manager, and I also have Qtile installed. So I'm going to open up a terminal, and here I am. Now I'm going to do, and you can see I am Mench at Arch Linux. I'm going to do neofetch. And you can see I'm running Arch Linux with the awesome window manager. And now I'm going to log out. And I'm going to log into Qtile. I'm going to put my password in. And now I'm in Qtile. And again, I'm Mench. And here is my neofetch. One more thing I want to show you before we really get started is I want to open up Firefox. So as you can see, I have Firefox here, and I have it, and there's a reason why I'm showing you this. I have Firefox open, and I have two bookmarks here. I have a bookmark to Arch Linux and a bookmark to the Linux kernel, and I also have Firefox hardened and set up the way I like it. And like I said, there's a reason why I'm showing you this. So let's close that. So I'm going to open up a terminal, and we're going to do this in a terminal. Now, let's say I decided I don't want my name to be Mench anymore. I'm going to make it John. I want to be John at Arch Linux. I don't want to lose my home folder, and I don't want to lose any files or configurations that are in my home folder. So I want to show you something before I get started. So I'm going to do vim etc password without the O and without the R. And I'm going in without sudo because I don't want to change the file. And this is going to protect me because I'm not using sudo. You can see here I'm read only. So what I want to do is show you this. Now usually when you go in here, you're going to be at the top. So I'm going to go down to here. Now this is the password file. And let's just go up one. So you can see Mench. I am Mench. And I'm at home Mench bin Zesh. So that means Mench is using Zesh as the shell, but that's besides the point. What I want to show you here is I am Mench. I am Mench at home / Mench. And you want to make sure this is properly changed when you change your name from Mench to John. Or when I change my name from Mench to John. So I just want to show you this. Let's close the file. Let's get out of there. Let's clear the screen. Now, the other thing is if I was adding a second user, which I'm going to do later, I can stay logged in as Mench and stay logged in the system and just use sudo or switch into root to add a second user or even a third or a fourth user, whatever. But when you're changing your name, when you're changing your name to a new name, you can't be logged into the system. You have to drop down to a TTY and log in as root. Now, one might ask, well, why can't we just switch into root now? Let's do that. You still can't do it because we're in as Mench. Now, let's say we just do CD. Okay, let's clear the screen. See, now we're not in as Mench anymore. We're in root at Arch Linux. No, but you're still logged into the system in the window manager Qtile, which I'm in now, or Awesome, or Cinnamon, or your favorite desktop. You're still logged in as Mench. So if you're going to add a new user, I could do that right now. I could add a new user, a second user, or a third user. But if I'm going to change my name Mench to John, let's say, I can't stay in here. I have to be logged out and I have to drop down to a TTY and log into root. So what I'm going to do is close the terminal. I'm going to log out. Now, if you're on bare metal, the way to get to the TTY is to hold down the Control and the Alt key at the same time and press F2 or F3 or F4. Now, normally, when you're using a display manager, it's usually on F7. So F7 is where your display manager is. So if you're in bare metal, like I said, just hold down the Control key and the Alt key at the same time and press F3 or F4 or F2, and that will take you to a TTY. But this is Virt Manager, and I'm in a virtual machine. So in Virt Manager, if you go up here, there's a keyboard, and it brings down the menu. And here is, you can see, Control Alt 3, Control Alt 4, Control Alt 2. Like I said, Control Alt 7 is where my display manager is, or my login manager, as most people like to call it. So let's go to Control Alt 3. And see, I'm at the login screen of a TTY. So at the TTY, I got to log in as root. Put root's password in. And now I'm logged in as root at the TTY. And at the display manager, Mench is logged out, because we're changing Mench's name. It's different when you're adding a second or a third user, but when you're changing the name of a user, you cannot be logged in as a user. So anyways, I over-explained that. I'm going to type in this command, user mod, and I apologize for the font. I know it's kind of small. When I'm in the TTY, I don't know how to make the font larger. There's some things I don't know how to do. So we're going to type in user mod, leave a space, -L. Now that is a small l, it's not a capital L, and it's not a 1. Just so it's clear, that's not a 1, it's a -L. I'm going to leave a space, and I'm going to put the new name of the person I want to be. I'm going to put my new name in there. I'm going to make my new name John. And I'm going to leave a space. I'm going to put my old name in there. So my old name is Mench. And I'm going to hit enter. Just like that. Now, I want to transfer Mench's home folder with all of his files and configuration files and any other files, music, pictures, whatever. I want to transfer that to John. So everything is going to stay the same. John's going to have access to all the folders that Mench had access to. The name is going to be changed, that's all. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to type in user mod, leave a space, -D, leave another space, /home, the new name, John, space, -M, John. I'm going to hit enter. Now I'm going to do this. I'm going to put John in the sudo file. So I'm going to give John sudo privileges. So I'm going to do vim etc sudoers. So now what I'm going to do now, of course, when you go into the file, you might be at the top. So you're just going to go down. And once again, like I explained in all my videos, most Linux distributions and most people teaching you how to use Linux give you sudo privileges by making the user part of the wheel group. I don't do that. I think it's easier just to do this. So I'm going to go and I'm going to delete Mench. And I'm going to change it to John, because you want John to have sudo privileges. And I'm going to save the file. Oops, I didn't save it right. Let's do this. Now it's saved right. Now another thing I'm going to do is clear the screen. And I want to go into the password file. Remember I showed you the password file at the beginning of the video? And I showed you how Mench was in there twice. Well, now I want to go in there and make sure John is in there twice. So I'm going to do vim etc password without the O and without the R. I'm going to hit enter. And it worked. So you can see on the very bottom line, you can see John is in there at the beginning of the line. And further on down the line, it says /home/John. So I'm not going to change anything in this file. I just want to make sure that John transferred properly. And John shell is Zesh. So that's good. So let's quit out of there. So I'm going to leave root logged in at the TTY. And I'm going to log in as John. I'm going to go to Control-Alt-F7. And like I said, if you're on bare metal, you want to hold down the Control key and the Alt key at the same time and press F7. So then you see Mench is gone from here. And John is there. So let's put John's password in and see if we can get in. And here we are. We're in Arch Linux with Mench's configuration file. Now let's open up this. And we're at John at Arch Linux. Let's see. And all of Mench's files are there. And I knew they were because when we logged into Qtile, if John didn't get Mench's files, he wouldn't have Mench's configuration files. And would be in a default Qtile rather than Mench's configuration of Qtile. So I knew it was working. But I just want to show you something. Let's clear the screen. Let's do LL. Now, if you look at the files, we have these files are John Mench. So I want to get rid of that. I want John to be John. So I'm going to quit out of there. I'm going to go back to, where was I? Was I on 3? I think I was on 3. Yes, I was on Control-Alt-3. So if you're in bare metal, Control-Alt and press the F3. So I'm going to clear the screen. And this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to type in group add, it's all one word, John. I'm going to hit enter. Oh, it says John already exists. That's good. Now what I'm going to do is usermod -G John. I'm going to hit enter. Now I'm going to log out. And I'm going to go back to F7, Control-Alt F7. And this time, let's go into Awesome Window Manager. Just for the fun of it. And I'm going to put John's password in. Now let's go into the terminal. Let's use my mouse. Let's go into Xterm. And let's do an LL. Now we see all the files are owned by John, whereas before it was John Mench. So that's how you change your username, but you keep all the folders and files and configuration files that you previously had. Now, I'm going to show you how to add a second user. And that we can stay logged in as ourselves. Like, I'm John now. I'm no longer Mench. I am John. Hello, hello, hello. I am John. Anyways, so to add a second user or even a third or a fourth user, you can stay logged in as yourself. You don't need to be in as root, but then you're going to have to use sudo. Oh, we haven't checked John's sudo. Let's see if John's sudo is working. Let's try and do an update. Sudo Pacman SYU. Put John's password in. And there's no update to do, and that's because I did an update in this virtual machine before I started the video. But we see John's sudo is working. John has sudo privileges. So like I said, if you're adding a second, third, or fourth user, you can be logged in as yourself. You're just going to have to use sudo privileges. So I'm going to add a second user, and I'm going to name him Vince. So let's do this. Sudo user add -m Vince. Hit enter. Now I got to put my password in. Don't forget I'm John now because I changed Mench to John. I'm going to put my password in. And now I'm going to give Vince a password. So I'm going to do sudo password without the O and without the R. I'm going to type in Vince. And it's asking for Vince's password. So I'm going to give Vince a password. I'm going to retype it. So now Vince has a password. So now at this stage of the game, you have to decide. Do you want to give Vince sudo privileges or not? Do you want Vince to have administrative rights? Do you want Vince to be able to download and update the system? If you do, then you're going to do sudo vim etc wrong thing, sudoers. And you're going to make another line here. Now you could add Vince to the wheel group, or you could just make a line here, copy the line to a third line, and take John out and put Vince in there. But I'm not going to give Vince sudo privileges. So as you can see, I'm in here read only. So let's restrict Vince. He's not going to have administrative rights. He's not going to have sudo privileges. And after later on, maybe we'll give him sudo privileges. So let's close this. Now another thing I want to do is just make sure he's in there. Let's do vim etc password without the O and without the R. And now you can see Vince is in here. Let's just go up a bit. So there's Vince /home/Mench, and he's bash. We have the bash shell attached to him. Now we're not going to give him the zesh shell right away. I'm going to do it afterwards because it won't work. You need a configuration file for zesh. And I'm going to show you how to do that. So I just want to make sure that Vince was in the password file correctly. So let's get out of here. Now let's clear the screen. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to log out and log in as Vince. I have a few things to show you. So let's close this. Let's quit out of there. And let's just change this to Vince. And we're going to put his password in. Now look, we're in the awesome window manager, but it's the default awesome window manager configuration. It doesn't have my configuration in there. Now let's open up Firefox. Now I can't use my fast keys because there's no fast key programmed into here. It's default awesome. And there's no Firefox in here. If you've been watching my previous videos, you would know, and you would know it yourself if you downloaded Awesome Window Manager yourself. The Awesome Window Manager default in Arch Linux is very bare. This menu only has a few things in it. So to get Firefox open up, we have to do the super key and the P and type in Firefox. Hit enter. And there it is. So now you can see even in Firefox, it's not the Firefox that Mench or John has, right? It's the Firefox that it hasn't been altered or hardened or configured the way that John or Mench configured it. And I forgot to open up Firefox when I was logged in as John, just to show you that John also has the same Firefox settings that Mench had. I'll do that after. So you can see the Firefox is here. Now, you know what? I'm going to do that now, just while we're talking about it. So let's quit out of here. And I'm going to log back in as John. Whoops. Type his password in. Now we're logged in as John, and let's go to Firefox. So you can see John has the same Firefox settings that Mench had. And There's the Linux webpage, there's the Arch Linux webpage, and so forth. So now I'm going to log out. Let's quit. Now let's log in as Vince, and let's go to Qtile. So we're going to do Qtile. Put Vince's password in, and we're in a default configuration of Qtile. So I want to give Vince all the configuration files that John or Mench had. So how am I going to do that? There's several ways to do it, but I'm going to do it the easiest way that I know how to do it. And before I do that, so we open up Firefox, and that's the Firefox settings. Let's open up a terminal. See, now even Xterm is the default Xterm, right? White page with small print. Let's do a neofetch. See? So we're going to give Vince all the configuration that John Mench had. So let's close this. Now let's clear the screen. Oops. There we go. Now I apologize about the print. There's something I can do to change the font in Xterm until we get Vince properly configured. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to download Mench's folder from my GitLab repository. So I'm going to do git clone http. And before I do that, let's do that first. Git clone http s:// gitlab.com artibus1 / mench.git. And I'm just downloading Mench's GitLab repository. And let's just do it LA. Let's just do an ls-a. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cd into Mench. Now remember, I'm cding not into Mench in this virtual machine. I'm cding into the Mench folder I downloaded from my GitLab repository that I show in all of my videos. And this GitLab repository is free for you to download and use my files. And I always leave the link in the show notes. So you can just copy the link into your terminal if you want to use them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the awesome folder and the Qtile folder from Mench's GitLab repository into John's home configuration folder. So I'm going to type in this command, copy capital R, awesome, space, Qtile, space, squiggly, dash, .config. Now let's see if it went there. cd.config ls, and it copied them. Now there's a few more files I want to copy over, so I'm going to do it. And I'm going to copy, and I apologize again, it's hard to read. I'm going to copy the zshrc file, the xinitrc file, and the xresources file. Oops. Right here. So I'm going to do this. Copy period xinitrc period zshrc period z history and period capital X resources. I'm going to copy those 4 files into squiggly line /. I'm not copying them into John's configuration folder, just into John's home folder. And we're going to CD out of there, and let's make sure they're there. LS, A. And it copied them. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch into root, put the password in for root because I know the root password. And I'm going to do this. I'm going to do Vim, Etsy, password without the O and without the R. And I'm going to change the end of Vince's line from bash to zesh. And I'm going to save the file. And I'm going to get out of there. Now I'm going to close this. Let's just shut down. Now this won't shut down the virtual machine or the computer. It's just going to shut down Qtile. And let's log back in. Let's see if it worked. And there we are. We are in the configuration file. Mench's configuration file is now, Vince now has Mench's configuration file. Now you might wonder why there's no wallpaper. Well, because I didn't copy the wallpapers. So let's go here. And you can see Vince's Xterm is a lot better now. So let's copy. Let's CD back into Mench. Let's LS it. Let's copy this wallpaper, Arch Linux. Simply black to squiggly line slash. That's Vince's home. Now let's quit out of there. Let's quit out of there. Let's log back in. And there we are. Vince now has Mench's or John's configuration file of Arch Linux. Now let's open up. Let's quit out of there. Now let's see if Awesome Window Manager worked. Let's log into Awesome. Vince is going to log into Awesome. Put his password in. And now Vince has Mench's or John's Awesome configuration file. And Xterm is still working. Let's open up Firefox. But Vince did not get Mench's or John's configuration file of Firefox. So that way Vince can have his own configuration of Firefox and set it up the way he likes it, and he can have his own bookmarks and his own history. So let's close that. So now I'm going to go into the terminal. And just to show you that Vince doesn't have sudo privileges, sudo pacman syy. Asking for Vince's password. Type in his password, and Vince is not in the sudoers file. So we're going to give Vince sudo privileges. So because I know the password to get into root, I'm going to type in su. And if you don't want Vince to have sudo privileges, you better not tell him your root password. Because if Vince knows your root password, he can log in as root and give himself sudo privileges. So I'm just letting you know in case you're new to Linux and you don't understand these things. Of course, an intermediate or advanced user would know these things. So I'm going to switch into root. I'm going to put my password in. And now I'm in as root. And I'm going to give Vince sudo privileges. So I'm going to type in this command. Etsy sudoers. And I'm just going to copy this line, paste it. And I know most people say you should add Vince to the wheel group. I don't use the wheel group. I think this way is easier. And I'm going to delete John. I'm leaving John up there though. And I'm going to type in Vince. And I'm going to save the file. So before I save the file, you can see we have root, John, and Vince. All have administrative rights. So now I'm going to save the file. And let's exit out of there. Let's close it. Now let's see if Vince has sudo privileges. Let's do sudo pacman syu, asking for Vince's password. And the system is up to date. So now Vince has sudo privileges. Let's log out of there. Let's close that. Let's go back into Qtile. And there we have it. It's Firefox. Let's log out of there. Let's go in as John, who used to be Mench. Put the password in. Let's go into Firefox. And you can see John has his own configuration file of Firefox, or Mench's, because we changed Mench to John. Let's go into Qtile as John or Mench. And there we have it. So in this video, I showed you how to change your username to a new name and to keep the same folder and files and configurations. And I showed you how to add a new user and how to give the new user the configurations you want him to have rather than the default configurations. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you learned something, please like it, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching. I am the Linux Mench.